Welcome, everyone. I'm Suzanne Borden, Moment Magazine's Special Projects Manager. Thank you all for joining us again today for the Enthralling 30s with the wonderful Michael Levine. At this time, we're recording today's class, but it will not be sent out to the public. The class is reserved for those who have already signed up and for those who continue to sign up. Please note that we will take some questions at the end of the session, so please type them in the chat box. Thank you very much, and now for today's program.
They used to tell me I was building a dream, and so I followed the mob. When there was earth to plow or guns to bear, I was always there, right on the job. They used to tell me I was building a dream, with peace and glory ahead. Why should I be standing in line, just waiting for bread? Once I built a railroad, made it run, made it race against time. Once I built a railroad, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once I built a tower to the sun, brick and rivet and lime. Once I built a tower, now it's done. Brother, can you spare a dime? Once in khaki suits, gee, we looked swell, full of that Yankee Doodle Dum. 500,000 boots went slogging through hell, and I was the kid with a drum. Say, don't you remember they called me Al? It was Al all the time. Say, don't you remember? I'm your pal. Brother, can you spare a dime?
Remember my forgotten man? You put a rifle in his hand. You sent him far away. You shouted hip hooray. But look at him today. Remember my forgotten man? You had him cultivate the land. He walked behind a plow. The sweat fell from his brow. But look at him right now. And once he used to love me. I was happy then. He used to take care of me. Won't you bring him back again?
Won't you bring him back again?
'Cause ever since the world began, a woman's got to have a man. Forgetting him, you see, means you're forgetting me, like my forgotten man.
Say, don't you remember they called me Al? It was Al all the time. Say, don't you remember? I'm your pal. Brother, can you spare a dime?
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Levine. Thank you for joining me again as I take you on a musical tour of the 1930s. I'm thrilled to have cabaret royalty Steve Ross and KT Sullivan with me today. We filmed a few songs especially for you this week, and I know you'll enjoy seeing and hearing them. As I said last week, I know I'll be skipping many of your favorite songwriters and songs, but hopefully I can plan more series like this one and add them in the future. The song you just heard, Brother Can You Spare a Dime, is one of the most well-known American songs of the Great Depression, written by lyricist Yip Harburg and composer Jay Gorney. Yip was born Isidore Hochberg and grew up in the Lower East Side with his Yiddish-speaking Orthodox parents who were originally from Russia. Harburg became lifelong friends with Ira Gershwin in high school, and Gershwin introduced him to Gorney. Jay Gorney, born Abraham Jacob Gornetsky in Bialystok, yes, Bialystok, Russia, and his family, witnessed pogroms and were forced into hiding for several weeks before making their way to Detroit. Brother Can You Spare a Dime first appeared in the 1932 musical revue Americana. The melody is based on a Russian Jewish lullaby. You might know it from its most popular recordings, those of Bing Crosby and Rudy Vallee. Starting with the Great Crash of 1929, the Great Depression in the United States had a severe impact on the country. In 1932, 25% of American men were unemployed, and there were shantytowns all over the country, including one near the Hudson River, not far from Broadway. After his appliance business went bankrupt, Yip Harburg started working as a lyricist. Jay Gorney recalled that they came up with the title after walking in Central Park, where they heard unemployed men asking, "Can you spare a dime?" And Yip Harburg said he was working on a song for Americana. We had to have a title, not to say, "My wife is sick, I've got 6 children, the crash put me out of business, hand me a dime." I hate songs of that kind. This song is about a man who has sought the American dream, but was foiled by the Great Depression. He's a veteran of World War I, someone who kept faith in America, and now America has betrayed him. He's lost his job and reduced to begging for charity. He recognizes the man whose dime, which is equivalent to $1.55 in 2020, he is asking for. At the time it was written, the critic, Brooks Atkinson, wrote that the song was plaintive and thundering, and the first song of the year that can be sung. Mr. Gorney has expressed the spirit of these times with more heartbreaking anguish than any of the prose bards of the day. Other popular songs of the same era tended to be upbeat, like "Happy Days Are Here Again," "On the Sunny Side of the Street," and "Life is Just a Bowl of Cherries." Brother put words and music to what many Americans were feeling: fear, grief, even anger. During the 1970s and the Watergate scandal, Harburg wrote a parody version for the New York Times that I thought you'd get a kick out of hearing. It went, "Once we had a Roosevelt, praise the Lord. Life had meaning and hope. Now we're stuck with Nixon, Agnew, Ford. Brother, can you spare a rope?" In the video, you also heard the song, "Remember My Forgotten Man." This song was written for the film Gold Diggers of 1933. This closing number from the film addressed the Depression directly, something you didn't see in the rest of the film. This was highly unusual for a Broadway film of the 30s. It's striking enough to attempt social commentary in a Hollywood backstage musical, but the song goes further in what it says about gender relations and the longings of men during the Depression. Al Dubin and Harry Warren, more on them a little later, wrote the song. The video you just saw was put together by Bill Doherty. It's him singing with the beautiful Deborah Trinelli. They starred in a review called "Brother Can You Spare a Dime? Songs and Stories from the Great Depression," with musical direction and arrangements by Doyle Newmeyer. I want to thank Bill for sending me this moving video, and I'm glad you all got to see it. The 1930s were shaped by the contrasting moods of the Great Depression and the glamorous beginnings of old Hollywood. Radios, phonographs, and sheet music all popularized new tunes. The radio show Your Hit Parade debuted in 1935, which showcased the most popular songs of the week. Billboard magazine also began publishing their Hit Parade in 1936. Jazz music, swing, and big band came into prominence throughout the 1930s and into the 1940s. Musical films influenced pop culture, and many film stars were also popular singers of the time. Broadway's writers moved to Hollywood and adapted their stage shows for a wider audience on the silver screen. Crooners grabbed the attention of a younger audience, and artists like Rudy Vallee and Jeanette MacDonald were crowned as early heartthrobs, hosting their own shows on radio and making appearances in films, all while churning out recorded hits of their own. In 1930, George Gershwin and his brother Ira wrote a Broadway musical called Girl Crazy. They wrote it for Ethel Merman, and she sang the following song, sung here by me.
sunny with never a sigh. Don't need what money can buy. Birds in the trees sing. Those are the birds singing. Their day full of song. Why shouldn't we sing along? I'm chipper all the day, happy with my lot. How do I get that way? Look at what I've got. I got rhythm, I got music, I got my gal who could ask for anything more. I got daisies in green pastures, I got my gal who could ask for anything more. Oh, man, trouble, I don't mind him. You won't find him round my door. I got starlight, I got sweet dreams. I got my gal who could ask for anything more. Who could ask for anything more? Oh, man, trouble, I don't mind him. You won't find him hanging around my front or back door. I got starlight, I got sweet dreams. I got my gal who could ask for anything more. Who could ask for anything more? Who could ask for anything more?
George and I were Gershwin from 1930. Now that recording and all of the other tracks of myself singing today that you'll hear are from a CD that I'm about to put out called Me and My Girls. You heard a bunch of tracks from it last week, and you hear another track of me doing a duet with Daisy Egan shortly. I'm putting this CD out, and if you have any interest in getting it, it's a lot of 20s and 30s songs that I'm very proud of. It's a lot of fun to put together. You can email me at Broadway MHL, we'll give you that later, at AOL.com and get copies of it for like $5. Anyway, the chord progression of I Got Rhythm, which is the which is known as the rhythm changes. That's the foundation for many other popular jazz tunes over the years, like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie's bebop standard, Anthropology, Thriving on a Riff. You can look it up on Wikipedia. George wrote the melody first and gave it to Ira to set. Ira found it an unusually hard melody to create lyrics for. He experimented for 2 weeks with the rhyme scheme. He felt the music called for sets of triple rhymes, but found that the heavy rhyming seemed at best to give a pleasant and jingly Mother Goose quality to a tune when it should throw its weight around more. Finally, he began to experiment with leaving most of the lines unrhymed. I don't know if you noticed that. This approach felt stronger, he wrote, and I finally arrived at the present refrain with only more door and mind him, find him, the only rhymes. He added that this approach was a bit daring for me, who usually depended on rhyme insurance. Ira also wrote that although the phrase "who could ask for anything more" is repeated 4 times in the song, he decided not to make it the title because somehow the first line of the refrain sounded more arresting and provocative. Moving on, the song "I Don't Know Why" has always been a favorite of mine. It was written by Fred Astaire, who was born in New York City. He received a degree from Fordham Law School, but instead of pursuing the law, Fred began working as an arranger, eventually working for the band leader, Fred Waring. He had his first hit song in 1920 and eventually started his own publishing company in 1928. You'll know a lot of his songs like "I'll Get By," "I'm Gonna Sit Right Down and Write Myself a Letter," and "Walking My Baby Back Home." He wrote this song, as he did most of those, with Roy Turk. It says, "I Don't Know Why."
All day long, you're asking me what I see in you. All day long I'm answering, but what good does it do? I have nothing to explain. I just love you, and I'll tell you once again. I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why, I just do. I don't know why you thrill me like you do. I don't know why you just do. You never seem to want my romancing. The only time you hold me is when we're dancing. I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why, I just do. You're as mean as you can be, always love to scold, but you treat your other friends quite decently. I'm told I should really hate you, dear. And in fact, I guess I do, except when you are near. I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why, I just do. I don't know why you thrill me like you do. I don't know why you just do. You never seem to want my romancing. The only time you hold me is when we're dancing. I don't know why I love you like I do. I don't know why, I just do. I don't know why, I just do.
Now, musical films were an important part of popular music during the 1930s, offering a reprieve from the Great Depression, and were an easy and affordable means of entertainment. These films opened the door to the glamorous world of Hollywood, showcasing song and dance numbers in front of a stylish background. There was a major boom in the production of musicals as the technology of adding synchronized sound improved dramatically. Some of the most popular musical movies released during the 1930s included Bright Lights, The Gay Divorcee, Top Hat, Showboat, Alexander's Ragtime Band, The Wizard of Oz, Babes in Arms, and of course, 42nd Street. Some of the famous people who wrote these songs included Broadway composers and lyricists like Richard Rodgers, Lorenz Hart, Cole Porter, Oscar Hammerstein II, Irving Berlin, George and Ira Gershwin, and Jerome Kern, who, by the way, were all Jewish except for Cole Porter. One of the greatest film choreographers of the 1930s was Busby Berkeley. His films featured intricate and geometric placement of dancers and showgirls, as seen in such movies as 42nd Street and Footlight Parade. Some of the most famous singers of all time made their name in the 1930s, including Bing Crosby, Judy Garland, Ruth Etting, Eddie Cantor, Ethel Waters, Ethel Merman, Cab Calloway, Johnny Mercer, Shirley Temple, Mae West, Betty Grable, Joan Blondell, Irene Dunn, and Dick Powell. The most popular and emblematic of the decade were Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, who sang and danced together on screen as two of the most famous stars in Hollywood. Astaire's paternal grandparents were Jewish, but he converted to Roman Catholicism. Astaire and Rogers epitomized the multi-talented entertainers that took the decade by storm, and they starred in 10 musical comedy films. Some of their most popular films were Top Hat, The Gay Divorcee, and Swing Time. Here is one of the Astaire Rogers songs, written by Irving Berlin. I just got an invitation through the mails. Your presence requested this evening is formal, top hat, white tie, and tails. Nothing now could take the wind out of my sails, because I'm invited to step out this evening in top hat, white tie, and tails. I'm putting on my top hat, tying up my white tie, brushing off my tails. I'm duding up my shirt front, putting in the shirt studs, polishing my nails. I'm stepping up, my dear, to breathe an atmosphere that simply reeks with class. And I trust that you'll excuse the dust when I step on the gas, for I'll be there, putting down my top hat, busting up my white tie, and polishing my tails. I'm stepping up, my dear, to breathe an atmosphere that simply reeks with class. And I trust that you'll excuse my dust when I step on the gas, for I'll be there, putting down my top hat, mussing up my white tie, dancing in my tails. From Irving Berlin, from the movie Top Hat, White Tie, and Tails. Now, in 1938, with the rise of Hitler, Irving Berlin, who was Jewish and had arrived in the US from Russia at age 5, felt it was time to revive his 1918 song, God Bless America, as a peace song. It was introduced on Armistice Day in 1938, sung by Kate Smith on her radio show. Berlin had made some minor changes. He added a verse that had rarely been heard up till then. Woody Guthrie criticized the song, and in 1940, he wrote This Land Is Your Land as a response. In fact, This Land Is Your Land was originally titled God Blessed America for Me. God Bless America was FDR's official song for his final presidential campaign in 1940. Irving Berlin gave the royalties of the song to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts in New York City. The song has rarely been out of the public eye. Here's Kate Smith singing God Bless.
Take great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair, as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Johnny Mercer was born in 1909 in Savannah, Georgia. When he moved to New York in 1928, Broadway was bursting with musicals and revues. His first few jobs were as a bit actor with a day job at a brokerage house. In his spare time, Mercer started writing lyrics. One night, he went backstage to offer a comic song to Eddie Cantor. Although Cantor didn't use the song, he began encouraging Mercer's career. Mercer's first lyric for the song Out of Breath and Scared to Death of You, composed by his friend Everett Miller, appeared in a musical revue, The Garrick Gaieties, in 1930. That show mostly had songs by Rodgers and Hart, more on them a bit later. He continued working in New York City with modest success. However, once he moved to Hollywood in 1935, his career was assured. One composer Mercer collaborated with was Richard Whiting, who was a native of Peoria, Illinois. By 1913, Whiting was working for a song plugger in Detroit, making $25 a week. Whiting heard George Gershwin playing one day and he helped him get a job as a song plugger himself. He moved to Hollywood and eventually collaborated with Johnny Mercer on this theme song of Tinseltown, which he wrote shortly before passing away from a heart attack at the age of 46 in 1938.
Hurry for Hollywood, that screwy ballyhooey Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan. And any barmaid can be a star maid if she dances with or without a fan. Hurry for Hollywood, where you're terrific if you're even good, where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you might be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood, hooray for Hollywood, that phony super Coney Hollywood. They come from Chillicothe and Paducas with their bazookas to get their names up in lights. All armed with photos from local rotos, with their hair in ribbons and legs in tights. Hooray for Hollywood. You may be homely in your neighborhood, but if you think that you can be an actor, see Mr. Factor, he'd make a monkey look good. Within a half an hour, you'll look like Tyrone Power. Hooray for Hollywood. Hooray for Hollywood, that screwy ballyhooey Hollywood. They hire cowboys and they hang their chaps up and all their maps up and give them all that they lacked. Now ain't it funny, they pay them money? Shows what you can do if your horse can act. Hooray for Hollywood. They hire fellas whose physiques are good, and then they tell them they're the perfect shape men to act like ape men, and they convince them they should. They make them groan and yell, and people think you're swell. Hooray for Hollywood!
I thought you'd all like to hear some of the lyrics that nobody knows. Actually, probably everybody can sing, hooray for Hollywood. Then everybody goes, da, 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 Hollywood, right? Now you know. They're Johnny Mercer, pretty damn good. I'm gonna show you a couple of other Mercer songs. Mercer and Whiting wrote another standard in 1937 for the film Ready, Willing, and Able. This song was used as a production number for Broadway. Alec Wilder, great composer, writer on musical, popular song, has praised the song as a model of pop songwriting, musically and lyrically. He cited its surprising shifts in rhythm and key. So listen carefully. I know you know the song, but maybe you haven't paid as much attention to it. I just think it's a gorgeous song, and here it is.
I search for phrases to sing your praises, but there aren't any magic adjectives to tell you all you are. You're just too marvelous for words, like glorious, glamorous, and that old standby amorous. It's all too wonderful. I'll never find the words that say enough, tell enough, I mean, they just aren't swell enough. You're much, too much, and just too very, very to ever be in Webster's dictionary. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you that you're marvelous, too marvelous for words. You're just too marvelous, too marvelous for words. Like rapturous, fabulous. Oh, your voice is tintinabulous. It's all too wonderful that ordinary words like magical, mystical seem much too apophystical. The sweetest words in Keats and Shelley's lyrics aren't sweet enough to be your panegyrics. And so I'm borrowing a love song from the birds to tell you you're colossable. You made my whole life possible, and too marvelous for words.
Now, I don't know how when the last time you used one of those words in conversation, like panegyrics. I use that every day, don't you? But I thought Johnny Mercer, the best. Moving on, another composer of this era, who many of you might not know, is J. Fred Coots, who was born in Brooklyn. He composed over 700 popular songs and over a dozen Broadway shows. You know some of them, like Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Anybody? Many of the well-known Christmas songs were actually written by Jews. He often wrote with Haven Gillespie, who was born in Covington, Kentucky. This next song was called A Minor Masterpiece by Alec Wilder. Listen, and you'll hear that the song starts in a major key, but from the second bar onward, Mr. Coots seems intent on creating a dreamlike quality tending more to the minor. The drama builds up and the ending has some surprises as well. I play a whole instrumental here because I just love this song. I think it's a gorgeous song, and I hope you feel the same way.
You go to my head and you linger like a haunting refrain, and I find you spinning round in my brain like the bubbles in a glass of champagne. You go to my head like a sip of sparkling burgundy brew, and I find the very mention of you like the kicker in a julep or two. The thrill of the thought that you might give a thought to my plea casts a spell over me. Still I say to myself, get a hold of yourself. Can't you see that it never can be? You go to my head with a smile that makes my temperature rise, like a summer with 1,000 Julys. You intoxicate my soul with your eyes. Though I'm certain that this heart of mine Hasn't a ghost of a chance in this crazy romance. You go to my head. You go to my head. The thrill of the thought that you might give a thought to my plea casts a spell over me. Still I say to myself, get a hold of yourself. Can't you see that it never can be? You go to my head with a smile that makes my temperature rise, like a summer with 1,000 Julys. You intoxicate my soul with your eyes, though I'm certain that this heart of mine hasn't a ghost of a chance in this crazy romance. You go to my head. You go to my head.
Go to my head. I just think that's a great, great song. I just really love it. I'm glad I was able to play it for you. Moving on, Alexander Dubin. I'm going to move on to swing music. Swing music is an offshoot of jazz, together with big band music. Swing differed from traditional jazz in that the songs would often have a stronger driving force. They focused on the rhythm sections and allowed some improvisation while often featuring a vocalist prominently. Some of the most iconic songs of the swing era include Begin to Begin, Minnie the Moocher, It Don't Mean a Thing If It Ain't Got That Swing, and Sing, Sing, Sing. In 1937, Hitler's Germany was obsessed with Bei mir bist du schön, which is perhaps the world's best known and longest reigning Yiddish theater song of all time. It was written by Jews, performed by Black musicians, popularized by a Lutheran trio of Norwegian sisters, and beloved by the Nazis, until they discovered its Jewish roots, that is. The song launched the Andrews Sisters to fame overnight, fueled a growing counterculture against German fascism, and by way of blending American music with the sounds of the shtetl, it helped ease Jewish immigrants' assimilation into American society. Bei mir bist du schön was originally written by Sholem Sekunda for a Yiddish operetta in 1935. After hearing the African-American jazz duo Johnny and George perform it in the Catskills, Jewish lyricist Sammy Kahn bought the rights and rewrote the lyrics in English, keeping just the title. Now, most Americans couldn't quite understand the title. My favorites for what they thought was being sung are Buy a Beer, Mr. Shane, or My Mere Bits of Shame. Made most famous by three non-Jewish sisters, Bei mir bist du schön is hardly the only Yiddish swing tune we should revere and revive as an unlikely protest song, but it's the rich history of Black and Jewish musicians who made this degenerate music irresistible to the Nazis that makes the shtetl swing melody an ultimate song of resistance. Of all the girls I've known, and I've known some, until I first met you, I was lonesome, and when you came in sight, dear, my heart grew light, and this old world seemed new to me. You're really swell, I have to admit. You deserve expressions that really fit you. And so I've racked my brain, hoping to explain all the things that you do to me. By mere Mr. Shane, please let me explain. By mere Mr. Shane means that you're grand. By mere Mr. Shane, again I'll explain. It means you're the fairest in the land. I could say Bella, Bella, even say wunderbar. Each language only helps me tell you how grand you are. I've tried to explain by mere Mr. Shane, so kiss me and say you understand. From Sammy Kahn, and also Sammy Kahn wrote that, I should say, with Saul Chaplin. They both worked on the English lyrics together. Now, crooners was a term popular in the 1930s for singers of sentimental pop and jazz standards, although at times this term was considered derogatory. Many crooners, as they were called, became popular during the 30s. The style fit well with the style of radio at that moment and created some of the first music heartthrobs, pop stars, and teen idols of that time. Artists like Bing Crosby, Russ Columbo, Hoagy Carmichael, and Rudy Vallee best represented the mostly male-dominated genre. Bing Crosby, while not necessarily a teen idol type, was also considered a crooner and became one of the first multimedia stars. He was one of the best-selling musicians of all time and certainly dominated the charts of the 1930s. Crosby got his start by recording with popular orchestras and soon found solo success with a weekly radio show. He belted out his hits, and they would quickly reach the top of the charts as listeners flocked to his distinctive bass baritone voice. Harry Warren was born Salvatore Antonio Guaragna in 1893 in Brooklyn. He taught himself to play the piano, and by 1915, he was working at the Vitagraph Motion Picture Studios before film went west, where, among other things, he played mood music on the piano for actors, and he even acted in bit parts. He joined the U.S. Navy in 1918, where he began writing songs. Harry wrote over 800 songs between 1918 and, reverse it, 1981, publishing over 500 of them. He was the first major American songwriter to write primarily for film. He collaborated with a number of lyricists like Billy Rose, Matt Gordon, Leo Robin, Ira Gershwin, and Johnny Mercer. However, many of his early hits came from his work with Al Dubin. Alexander Dubin was born in 1891 in Zurich, Switzerland. He moved to Philadelphia when he was 2, and he used to play hooky from school in his teens so he could come into town and see Broadway musicals. When he was 14, he began writing special material for a vaudeville entertainer in Tin Pan Alley. He met Harry Warren in 1925. Their first song was called Too Many Kisses in the Summer and Bring Too Many Tears in the Fall. Their first official assignment was writing the score for 42nd Street in 1932, for which they contributed 4 songs: 42nd Street, You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me, Young and Healthy, and Shuffle Off to Buffalo. Between 1932 and 1939, Warren and Dubin wrote 60 hit songs for Warner Brothers movie musicals, including Gold Diggers of 1933, Footlight Parade, which starred Jimmy Cagney, Roman Scandals, Dames, Go Into Your Dance, and Wonder Bar. In 1935, they wrote this song for the film Broadway Gondolier. Where's that careless chambermaid? Where'd she put my razor blade? She mislaid it, I'm afraid. It's gotta be found. Asked her when she cleaned my room what she did with my perfume. I just can't lose it, I gotta use it, 'cause Lulu's back in town. Gotta get my old tuxedo pressed. Gotta sew a button on my vest, 'cause tonight I gotta look my best. Lulu's back in town. Gotta get a $50 somewhere. Gotta shine my shoes and slick my hair. Gotta get myself a boutonniere. Lulu's back in town. You can tell all my pets, all my Harlem coquettes, Mr. Otis regrets that he won't be around. You can tell the mailman not to call. I ain't coming home until the fall, and I might not get back home at all. Lulu's back in town. You can tell all my pets, all my Harlem coquettes, Mr. Otis regrets that he won't be around. You can tell the mailman not to call. I ain't coming home until the fall, and I might not come back home at all. Lulu's back in town. Lulu's back in town. Lulu's back in town. By Harry Warren and Al Dubin from the film Broadway Gondolier, 1935. Now, from 1935 to 1938, Hollywood's #1 box office draw was Shirley Temple. She was born in Santa Monica, California in 1928. Her mother enrolled her in Meglin's dance school and styled Shirley's hair in ringlets, as you know. While at the dance school, she was spotted by a casting director. She was signed to a contract and started filming these 10-minute comedy shorts satirizing recent films, all using preschool children. Glad Rags to Riches was a parody of the Mae West film She Done Him Wrong, with Shirley as a saloon singer. The Runt Page, was a pastiche of, you got it, The Front Page. She was the breakout star of these, and she was promoted to 20-minute comedies called The Frolics of Youth. Now, Jay Gorney, remember Jay Gorney, the composer of Brother, Can You Spare a Dime, saw her in the movie theater lobby, just standing there, after seeing one of these Frolics of Youth shorts. He arranged for her to have a screen test, and a star was born. In late 1934, her first feature film, which was called Bright Eyes, was released. This was her signature song. I've thrown away my toys, even my drum and trains. I want to make some noise with real live aeroplanes. Someday I'm going to fly. I'll be a pilot too. And when I do, how would you like to be my crew? Everybody sing along. On the good ship, lollipop, it's a sweet trip in a candy shop where bonbons play on the sunny beach of Peppermint Bay. Lemonade stands everywhere, Cracker Jack bands fill the air, and there you are, happy landing on a chocolate bar. See the sugar bowl do a Tootsie Roll with the big bad devil's food cake. If you eat too much, oh, you'll awake with a tummy ache. On the good ship, lollipop, it's a night strip. Into bed you hop and dream away. On the good ship, lollipop. And that song was written by Sidney Clare and the aforementioned Richard Whiting from that film, and from the film Bright Eyes, one of Shirley's first films. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to introduce our special guests for today's show, one of the premier cabaret artists of all time. Please help me welcome Ms. K.T. Sullivan.
Hi, Michael. These pandemic times, where you saved my life, Michael. I discovered the piano. I used to study piano as a child, and then I learned how to sing. I liked when I sang, people listened. When I played the piano, they would continue dinner conversation. But I liked when people paid attention to me while I was singing. So I gave up piano. But the pandemic had all these extra hours, so I started playing the piano again. And this is one of my favorite songs. I sang it at the 92nd Street Y. I remember Maurice Levine. He told me all about it. The fact that this was actually written in 1938 by Sammy Fain and Irving Cahill. Became famous during the war in 1944. Actually, after it was in a movie. Movies do that. It's like As Time Goes By became famous because of the movie Casablanca. This song too became famous in 1944. One of my favorites. It was sung by Gogi Grant, in a musical review of the Musica Semi-Fame at the Long Wharf Theater, which I did, God, it was back in 92, I think. Ron Raines, Uncle Grant. But this has a lot of meaning here, too. All these people we have been away from, like, we miss everybody. And, who knows when we shall meet again? But when the morning chimes ring sweet
Thank you, KT. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the Crown Prince of New York Cabaret. Please say hello to Mr. Steve Ross.
The 30s, that's the decade that Michael is honoring tonight by celebrating it in song, was a very dark time in this nation's history. Not dissimilar in some ways to the one we are going through now. And people being people, and why shouldn't they, sought escape from this, to give them a surcease after all of the sadness. They didn't have Netflix in those days, but they did have Fred and Ginger. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Heaven, I'm in heaven, and the cares that hang around me through the week seem to vanish like a gambler's lucky streak when we're out together dancing cheek to cheek. Oh, I love to climb a mountain and to reach the highest peak, but it doesn't thrill me half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Oh, I love to go out fishing in a river or a creek, but I don't enjoy it half as much as dancing cheek to cheek. Dance with me, I want my arm about you, the charm about you will carry me through heaven. I am in heaven, and my heart beats so that I can hardly speak. I seem to find the happiness I seek when we're all together dancing cheek to cheek. Soon we'll be without the moon, humming a different tune, and then there may be teardrops to show. But while there's moonlight and love and romance, let's face the music and dance, dance. Let's face the music and dance.
Thank you, Steve.
That was, of course, Fred and Ginger by Irving Berlin. Another song that Fred did not introduce, but which he danced to in a film with Sid Charisse. Fred and his sister Adele had been the dancing darlings of the trenches. But then Adele decided to hang up her tap shoes. But she wanted to go out with a hit, and they got one in one of the great splashy revues of the 30s, The Bandwagon. This is an extraordinary song, Dancing in the Dark. And for this reason, there aren't many songs that are both love songs and existential statements. I can think of two others, Lost in the Stars, On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. But this one in particular has a classic form and beauty, waltzing in the wonder of why we're here. It doesn't get much better than that. Dancing in the dark, till the tune ends. We're dancing in the dark, and it soon ends. We're waltzing in the wonder of why we're here. Time hurries by, we're here, looking for the light of a new love to brighten up the night. I have you, love. We can face the music together, dancing in the dark. What though song is old, what though love is old, through them we can be young. Hear this heart of mine, make yours part of mine, dear one, and we dancing in till the tune ends, we're dancing in the dark, and as soon as we're waltzing in the wonder of why we're here. Time hurries by, we're here and gone, looking for the light of a new love to brighten up the night. I have you, love, and we can face the music together, dancing in the dark.
Thank you so much, Steve. Now, I know you'd all love to see Steve and KT do a duet. They have been filming their Noel Coward and Gertrude Lawrence show, which they did at the Irish Rep last year, for release next month. And I should say that that KT solo and this duet were filmed yesterday at the Mabel Mercer office in Times Square. I went down there to film them, and it's a beautiful office with lots of photos of Mabel Mercer in the day and pictures of Bobby Short and wonderful composers and pianists, and she took me on a little tour of it. And this is back at that piano there. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ross and KT Sullivan.
So, Steve and I are doing a show called Not Noel at the Irishman. It's being filmed, it's virtual. Last year was real. This year, it's virtual. We're filming at the Players Club today and yesterday and tomorrow. This was sung and introduced by Noel Coward, written by Noel Coward for himself, and Gertrude Lawrence. Was it in the real world, or was it in a dream? Was it just a note in some eternal theme?
Was it accidental or accurately planned? How could I hesitate, knowing that my fate led me by the hand? You were there. I saw you and my heart stopped beating.
You were there. And in that first enchanted meeting, life changed its tune. The stars, the moon came near to me.
Dreams that I dreamed like magic seemed to be clear to me.
Dear to me.
You were there. Your eyes looked into mine and faltered every color of the whole world. Thoughts became true. My universe tumbled into. The earth became heaven for you. Were there.
Thank you, Steve and KT, so much. In 1931, a musical called Here Goes the Bride opened on Broadway. The music was by Johnny Green, who became a famous film conductor and arranger. You're likely to know his song, Body and Soul. The lyrics were by Edward Heyman, who wrote some famous songs later. It had an enormous cast. I'm going to play you a song that has never been recorded before from this musical. This will be on my CD. I got Tony winner Daisy Egan. She won the Tony when she was 11 years old for The Secret Garden. And she sings a duet with me from Here Goes the Bride. Here we are singing a song called My Sweetheart, 'Tis of Thee.
Singing songs to you has been my pastime, and it's kept us from being bored. The kind of tune, rhyming June, with the moon we've adored. I have sung that kind of song the last time. Even classics are taboo. I'll sing no more, trovator. This is for only you. My sweetheart, 'tis of thee. I sing this melody. No use to stall about, this will be all about you. No rainbow will appear. Of bluebirds, I'll stay clear. There is no doubt of this. Moonlight is out of this too. To you are due the nicest words a poet knows. To you is due the sweetest tune that anyone could compose. My sweetheart, 'tis of thee. I sing this melody. This is the way I say, pardon me, may I say, I kind of like to love you.
you can play too. I'll applaud and perhaps cheer. And just to please, I'll reprise some of these thoughts, my dear. My sweetheart is a bee. I sing this melody. Roses won't bloom in this, they have no room in this song. Not even Tennessee will get a break from me. I'll do without a dream. Who cares about a dream song? You're better than Sir Galahad in Arthur's court. What Galahad you have more of? You're simply the thrilling sort. My sweetheart is a bee. I sing this melody.
It's a confession of
Wanting possession of love that just couldn't go wrong.
That's Daisy Egan and myself singing from Here Goes the Bride, a song called My Sweetheart, 'Tis of Thee. Now, Richard Rodgers and Lorenz Hart met in 1919 when they were both at Columbia University. They wrote some of the varsity shows there. Actually, in 1980, Columbia presented the 60th anniversary of Fly With Me, the first varsity show of Rodgers and Hart. I was a student there then and a rehearsal pianist for the production, which has some terrific songs and the very first song ever written by Rodgers and Hammerstein back in 1920, over 20 years before they started collaborating. You can get the CD. Their first Broadway musical was The Garrick Gaieties in 1925, which also introduced Johnny Mercer to Broadway. One of their first films in 1932 was Love Me Tonight, which starred Maurice Chevalier as a tailor who poses as a nobleman and Jeanette MacDonald as a princess with whom he falls in love. This next song became a standard as one of the great love songs. However, in the film, it had a different meaning, as Lover was the name of Jeanette's truly unruly horse. So picture that as I sing Lover. When you held your hand to my heart, dear, you did something grand to my heart, and we played the scene to perfection, though we didn't have time to rehearse. Since you took control of my life, you have become the whole of my life. When you are away, it's awful, and when you are with me, it's worse. Lover, when I'm near you and I hear you speak my name, softly in my ear you breathe a flame. Hey! Lover, when we're dancing, keep on glancing in my eyes, till love's old entrancing music dies. Oh, all of my future is in you. You're every plan I design. Promise you'll always continue to be mine. Lover, please be tender. When you're tender, fears depart. Lover, I surrender to my heart. I know, would you like a nice little sugar cube? So that's Lover from Rodgers and Hart. Now, the 1930s went out with what's often referred to as one of the greatest films of all time. You're not Gone with the Wind, I meant the other one, The Wizard of Oz. Harold Arlen was born Hyman Arluck in Buffalo. He was the son of a Jewish cantor. He had a band in Buffalo and did well, but he moved to New York City in his early 20s, where he worked as an accompanist in vaudeville and changed his name. His first hit in 1929 was Get Happy, which he wrote with Ted Koehler. There were a number of popular songs like Let's Fall in Love. In the mid-30s, he moved to California and started writing movie musicals. He got hooked up with Yip Harburg. You heard about Yip earlier. You can read all about The Wizard of Oz online, but I would like to tell you a little about the one song that a little you may not know about, Over the Rainbow. Harburg claimed his inspiration was a ballad for a little girl who was in trouble and wanted to get away from Kansas, a dry and arid, colorless place. She had never seen anything colorful in her life except the rainbow. Arlen described the idea, he decided the idea needed a melody with a long, broad line. Arlen described how he got the inspiration for the melody. I said to Mrs. Arlen, let's go to Grauman's Chinese. You drive the car. I don't feel too well right now. I wasn't thinking of work. I wasn't consciously thinking of work. I just wanted to relax. And as we drove by Schwab's drugstore in Sunset, I said, pull over, please. And we stopped. And I really don't know why. Bless the muses. I took out my little bit of manuscript and put down what you know now as Over the Rainbow. Arlen said he wrote the bridge section of the song based on the idea of a child's piano exercise. Ladies and gentlemen, Judy Garland.
Some place where there isn't any trouble. Do you suppose there is such a place, Toto? There must be. It's not a place you can get to by a boat or a train. It's far, far away. Behind the moon, beyond the rain. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you
By 1939, the world was changing. The Depression had ended. However, a few weeks after The Wizard of Oz opened, Hitler had invaded Poland and World War II was starting. To be continued next week. Thank you so much for joining me today for this salute to the 1930s. Please come back a week from today when I'll be closing this series with a tribute to the 1940s. Thank you. Suzanne, how about some questions from you and our audience?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much. That was so much fun. I've enjoyed watching people dance along. I know I did as well. I apologize for the quick ad in there. Sometimes that happens when you play a YouTube video. But again, please, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box. The first question is, Richard Rodgers wrote with two lyricists, Lawrence Hart and Oscar Hammerstein. Do lyricists influence the music because the music seems so different to me, like it was written by two different composers? That's a great question.
A very good question. I think Rodgers and Hart and Hammerstein were two very different lyricists in terms of the way they worked. With Rodgers, Hart was always drunk and he would it would be so hard for Rodgers to get him to sit down and just write. And he'd write things on napkins in restaurants and little pieces of paper. And Hammerstein was the opposite. They would meet every day, write studiously. You can read a lot about them online. But I think Rodgers had a number of other collaborators after Hart and Hammerstein. He collaborated with Stephen Sondheim in a musical called Do I Hear a Waltz? He wrote a musical with Martin Charnin called 2 by 2 about Noah and the Ark, starring Danny Kaye. And he also wrote with Richard Rodgers. He wrote a musical, lyrics and music, a show called No Strings that starred Richard Kiley and Diane Carroll. that was probably his easiest lyricist to work with. But I know that Hart, there were a lot of descriptions you could find online about the differences of Hart writing very literate, but not necessarily towards character. Although as the time went by, when you go to look at Pal Joey, I was going to talk a little about Pal Joey, but that's really the 1940s. He was very much writing more for character, but usually he was writing for review format. So and Hammerstein was very much geared on furthering the plot, something that didn't really happen in the 1920s or 30s and happened more towards the 1940s and happened very rarely before that. That's a short answer.
The next question is, which usually comes first, the song, the words, or the music?
The age-old question, and it really depends upon the collaborator. They said, I mean, many composers, like for example, Andrew Lloyd Webber today writes, he says, you send me a lyric, I'm never going to send you the music first. You have to write the lyric first, and I will write music to it. But other composers and lyricists say this is, and some composer and lyricists claim they're right together, but they don't really, and the secret comes out, or it doesn't come out. For example, Martin and Blaine, Hugh Martin and Ralph Blaine wrote Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and many, many other songs you know. And Hugh was a dear friend of mine. He lived in Encinitas, and he said, we would show up every morning and say, what'd you write? Well, last night I wrote Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and Ralph Blaine said, well, I wrote Buckle Down Winsaki, which was more Ralph style. So they didn't really collaborate, but they were listed, had both of their names on every song. That was something they agreed to at a very early age. So everybody's different. I think every collaborating team, there's no hard and fast answer as to say the music always comes first or the lyrics always come first. I think that's a long answer again, short question.
Thank you. And you mentioned just again the Christmas songs. Why do you think so many Jewish composers are the ones behind the classic tunes?
That's a very good question. I don't have there's no definite answer. My thought is that most of them grew up in New York City, and New York City was so geared towards Christmas, I think. I mean, I think my mother, who was around in the 30s and can tell you what it was like back then, can say that whether New York was Christmas, 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 I think they were so immersed with it that when they sat down at holiday time, they're not going to write about dreidel, dreidel, dreidel. They're going to write about Santa Claus is coming to town. So that's my gut feeling, that it was just such a New York thing. But I honestly haven't, if anybody else has a thought about it.
I do. I also wonder if that, so many of these composers and lyricists were immigrants or came from immigrant families. And was this the ultimate way of showing you were American?
That's not a bad thought too. That's an excellent thought.
Someone would like to know, what is your favorite song?
I don't really have one. I have what I like and what I don't like. I have plenty that I like and plenty that I don't like, but I don't really have a favorite. Thanks, that one.
Do you prefer playing up-tempo songs or ballads?
I do prefer playing up-tempo, but I think it's great to show a beautiful ballad. But you may notice a preponderance in my playing. I was worried about running out of time, so I cut. My last song was going to be, that I sang live, was going to be today, Have You Met Miss Jones by Rodgers and Hart. But I saw that I didn't have time. I wanted to have some time for questions, so I held off on another ballad. But I do have a preponderance towards up-tempos and for comic material.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that so many of the composers and lyricists are not known the way, say, that the Gershwins? I know you had mentioned that some of them had written hundreds of songs from shows that we know. Why did they not get their right due?
Well, I'll tell you, both Harry Warren and Hugh Martin were going to write autobiographies called Harry Who or Hugh Who. They ended up calling their books something different, but they were, wrote songs you can sing, but nobody knew them. And I want to say that the Gershwins put themselves so out there socially. They were performing always. George Gershwin would always sit down at pianos. He would play in concerts. So I think he was so socially, it was like he was on the 1930s equivalent of Facebook, and he was just always around. That's my gut feeling. I think when they really put themselves out there, they got well known. But I think somebody like J. Fred Coots wrote the songs, turned them in, and went back to the next song. And they weren't necessarily known, or they weren't seen on film. Some of them, there's no hard and fast answer, but that's my gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned during the talk that crooners at first was seen as a derogatory term. Do you know why? And when did these performers decide to embrace it?
I think crooning was so new to society then that people heard it and went, well, that's not what people do. They're not doing what we've been hearing for all these times. So I think people go with what they are used to hearing. And when you hear something new, like when hip hop or R&B, any kind of new type of music first comes in, I think the public doesn't necessarily embrace it right away. And it takes time for them to say, oh, this is pretty good. I really like this style. And otherwise they might be like, I'm not sure. And then as I think Bing Crosby started getting more and more popular, and so did the other crooners, people went, wow, it's pretty good. I think that's the only reason it was derogatory, because people didn't know and they were wary of what it was going to be, since it was not what they were used to hearing. I got that.
Thank you. You mentioned, I think back in the class we did with you in May, that you have a very large collection of sheet music. How did that come about?
Well, I've been collecting since I was very young, and when I was in college at Columbia, I was here in New York City, so I was buying up going to old sheet music shops, and I spent a lot of time at the Library of Congress, where you can copy to your heart's content, and I was copying a lot of things down there. And then in 1994, the composer Arthur Siegel, who wrote for Broadway, wrote the New Faces reviews in 1952, 56, 62, and 68. He passed away, and he lived across the street from me, and he had been collecting since he was 12 years old and died at the age of 70. And I inherited his collection. This was a whole day of bringing file cabinets. People like Richard Rodgers or Jerry Herman or Julie Stein would send him new music when they'd written it. So they were all kinds of early versions of songs. In fact, he had a lot of Richard Rodgers stuff in Rodgers' own handwriting that the Rodgers and Hammerstein organization did not have. And I was starting to provide music to them that I got from Arthur's collection. Over the years, I've inherited a number of other collections. Peter Howard, who's my mentor, who wrote the dance music to Chicago and Crazy for You and many other Broadway musicals, left me his music in 2008, and that was a big collection. And there are a number of other collectors. I've inherited their collections, so the collection just keeps growing in leaps and bounds, and I'm always have piles of music waiting to be filed here. Keeps me busy.
That's very nice. That's nice that you have all of that, a bit of history there. Someone would like to know how have you become so knowledgeable in this whole area to be able to give these classes?
Well, I mean, since Suzanne and I do talk regularly during the week preparing these for you, and in writing the scripts, my best friend is Wikipedia, and I go there and there's a basic site that will show me the history of like just the 1930s popular music, the 1940s popular music. I'll start there as a basis and then try to make it a little more my own writing, not to sound too scholarly, too from the book, and put my own 2 cents in, and then I'll riff off that and then decide to add some things that I know already, because I know enough about this material to be able to talk about, sometimes bring my own personal experiences like working on Fly With Me into the play too.
So great, thank you. Well, that's all the time we have for questions, but we do have another minute or two. So would you be interested in playing us off with Have You Met Miss Jones?
Sure. Let me see if I can find it. Just wait. I had it out here. Give me 2 seconds.
While he's looking for it, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this show. We will join Michael again next Thursday. And again, please feel free to tell your friends that they can still purchase tickets for this 3-part series. You will receive a link to the recording. We will edit out the few technical flubs we had, and you will get that tomorrow. So thank you all very much for joining us. Michael?
Thank you very much. Ending with, have you met Miss Jones? Someone said as we shook hands, she was just Miss Jones to me. Then I said, Miss Jones, you're a girl who understands I'm a man who must be free. And all at once I lost my breath, and all at once was scared to death, and all at once I owned the earth and sky. Now I've met Miss Jones, and we'll keep on meeting till we die, Miss Jones and I. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.